We now have Chief Cyril Allen, Chairman Emeritus of the NPP, live on the line. Sir, good evening.
Good evening, Radio Maryland.
This is
It's
Radio.
a pleasure.
Right, this is Radio Phoenix, the voice of Tubman University.
Radio Phoenix.
Right,
Okay.
right. Okay. It's always a pleasure as well having you on the line because you speak so frankly.
Yes.
Let's roll right into business. The NPP is part of this coalition for democratic change. There's been a beehive of activities talking about primaries around the country. First of all, tell us your take on the primaries.
Well, I can't say anything negative because the primaries happen to be my idea, so almost solely my idea as chairman of the advisory board for the primaries. My suggestion was very clear that we needed to demonstrate around the country what has not been done before. The issue has been people handpicking individuals in this capital city or the various capitals and putting them forward to represent people in the districts. I was of the impression that the district should decide who should represent them, and so the district would make the selections or the elections. That we have 50 delegates from each of the 9 political parties in the coalition at every constituency, forming 450 delegates, members of the party, to come together and elect one representative, and then each of the district will submit a certain number of delegates to vote for the senatorial seat. That is the concept of primary, so that we know that the individual stem from the county and that the county or the constituency have put somebody forward that we can beef up, support that individual, and give them a chance of winning.
Now, Chief Allen, there was a bit of misunderstanding, especially in the outer circles, when incumbent senators and representatives of your coalition had to go again through primaries. Why was that so?
Well, it is because of the experience that we have had over the period for the by-elections. During the by-elections, most of the incumbent lost. And most of them do not go back to their counties. They do not go back to their districts when they are elected. They come to Monrovia and begin and promulgate laws here to suit their personal interests and do not represent the interests of the people that they represent. Even the funds for county development and other things are not reaching to the counties because the representation from the counties and districts are not proactive in showing that the people that they represent are well taken care of. So the fact that they have not been winning, the fact that you're an incumbent, that does not mean that you are going to win the democratic process in the district. I mean, for example, there are protest votes. Some people do not want to see the representatives anymore because they have not done anything for them in 6 years. So we have to have our partisans in the various districts submit to us those individuals who they think are winnable candidates.
Now, the midterm elections saw, just as you rightly put, a big loss for the ruling coalition. Have you managed to fix those issues which may have led to the losses sustained by the coalition?
This is the reason. And the solution to that is primaries. Let us go through the primaries this time around and see the results. We have tried a handful of people handpicking representatives and whatnot. Let's see now whether the county representation, those individuals that the county put forward, would win. And then from there we'll draw our conclusions. But the will of the people must prevail. And if the people have a decision in who represent them, you might get better results. Definitely, not might, you will get better results.
Okay, and Chief Allen, we can't go on with this interview, end this interview, without bringing to the table the issue of Senator James Binnie. He hails from Maryland County. He's been very popular and influential in the NPP and subsequently the Coalition for Democratic Change. But he fell out with especially the vice president, who he accused in a recent interview on the Spoon Network of trying to usurp the authority of the chairperson. Firstly, where are we so far? Because he claims that even though he's been expelled as chairman, he claims that he still holds the legal authority as chairman of the NPP. What do you make of that?
Well, I would tell you very clearly and distinctly that Senator Binnie and former Chairman Binnie is still a leading member of the of the NPP. He's still a relevant individual in the NPP. We cannot divorce ourselves from that because that is the reality. But when it came to the decision of the National Executive Committee to continue with the coalition, Jimmy did not support that concept because he wanted the party to go in another direction or to try some other option. But the decision of the National Executive Committee was clear. Even, some of us were supporting his view also, but in the democratic process, the will of the majority prevailed. It was the decision of the majority of the partisans of the NPP, besides 5 or 6 members of the executive committee, voted to continue with the coalition. Jimmy was not prepared to lead the party in that direction, so it was easy for him to step aside, honorably step aside, and then allow the vice chairman for administration to take over the mantle of leadership.
Well,
Being that he has been very outspoken and which is in violation of the party's constitution, the executive committee took a decision to temporarily expel Jimmy until a convention. A convention is going to be held in December, and his final fate will be determined at the convention. There's a case study with that because I was national chairman, and former President Taylor wanted me removed for his own personal reasons, and he suspended me as party chairman for about 3 months. In December, we went to Grand Bassa County for the convention, and the convention overruled his decision, and I remained national chairman for 2 years after that. So a precedent has been set in that line, so maybe the same precedent will come to being sometime down the road. But now we're going straight through the democratic process, the election with George Mulbar as acting chairman, as chairman of the executive committee of the party.
do you agree with Senator Binnie that Vice President Howard Taylor is actually trying to usurp his authority and control the NPP? Do you agree with him?
I don't agree with that because it doesn't happen. The party is a democratic institution. There are several things that the standard bearer of the party wanted to happen that have not happened because he has been voted democratically. Everything in the party goes through a democratic vote. And certain times she would win and certain times she would lose. And that's it. Jimmy tried 1 or 2 occasions. He won on certain issues. And this time he lost because all the partisans of the National Executive Committee decided to continue with the coalition.
Now, Mr. Allen, you would agree with me that this is not a good time to have this kind of thing in the party, especially we just maybe a little under 4 months away from general and presidential elections. Also, the fact that James Binnie is very popular in Maryland County. Don't you think you should try to patch up with him? Because the indication is that he's leaning towards Joseph Boykai and the Unity Party.
Well, the people of Maryland County normally vote their own interest. They're not going to follow James. They're not going to follow Binnie. People have their individual choices, and whether he support Boykai or not, many of the citizens in Maryland County will support whoever they want to support. So it does not put a dent in the NPP or in the coalition anyway. What we need is a simple majority. And exactly, we would lobby in Maryland County and hope that the people of Maryland would support the candidacy of the incumbent, President Weah and Joe Howard Taylor, and support some of our representative and senatorial candidates in the county. Yes, Binnie has an impact, but he only won in Maryland with a slight majority. A very slight majority after all the financial support of the party and the coalition itself. So he won with the support of the coalition. He did not win by himself standing up. So it has to be made clear that Binnie is only an individual. And his inability to work along with his institution, of which he started off as a county chairman, youth leader in Maryland, and have come all the way through to party chairman. It's a big credit to him and Maryland County. So he must continue to conduct himself in an institution. Institutions take vote. Political institutions particularly have democratic tenets, and those democratic tenets must be adhered to. You do not abandon a ship in the middle of the ocean, especially so when the majority of your partisans are voting in one direction. He should have followed the will of the majority if he's a democratic leader. That's how I feel, and that's what I've always been. I've always supported the concept of democracy, and the will of the majority always prevail. I do not support everything that the majority vote on, but I do not support everything that the majority vote on, but when the majority vote, I have to follow. I'm chairman emeritus of the party. I do not have my own way all the time. I don't think anyone has their own way. We have to conform to the democratic tenets of majority vote. So anybody who cannot conform to that, that means you're not a team player. And we need team players to be able to win a democratic process. That is the reality.
Now, finally, from my end, we're just a stone's throw away from elections, rating the government, your government, and by that I mean the coalition. Where do you think you went short and need to do better, just in case you are re-elected?
Well, I think on many things, particularly one of the main things that I'm concerned about is the inability of the legislators to provide sufficient funds in the budget to accommodate our disadvantaged youth. The disadvantaged youth is a key thing, and have large numbers, and their interest must be paramount. We must have the paramount interest of the younger people in this country to look after. There must be huge amount of money put in the budget to rehabilitate these young people and provide a means of them to survive. Bring in industries and factories and train them to man these industries and factories to be able to sustain themselves and their family. Other areas, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Other areas I look at is we need to put more effort in agriculture extension programs at the county level to ensure that we have sufficient technology, sufficient factories and industries in the country to transform our raw materials into finished and semi-finished products. Create extension, large areas of farms, and build homes for those people who will be working in the farms and working with the technology and the machinery. Another thing we have to put a lot of money in is healthcare. Make sure that the hospitals are equipped and the nurses and doctors are well paid and well looked after. These are some of the things that are very important where we had shortcomings in the last 6 years. We need to build upon those things there and provide a means of livelihood for the citizens of our country. That is what is a responsible government should do and would do this time around. Also, an important thing also is to take some very stern actions against individuals who are not performing in government. Most of our functionaries in government are not diligent in the discharge of their duties. They are derelict in the discharge of their duties. Therefore, the president must have a very strong hand to make sure that he makes changes in those areas where there are shortcomings. It's very important that these kind of things be put into place so that the governance process can be fluid and that Liberians can benefit and not be spectators in their country.
Now, the disadvantaged youths are basically, most of them are, I would say, created, if I may, by the issue of drugs into the country. I didn't hear you talk much about the drugs, which usually lead these people out wayward, and the issue of security, the poor security network.
Yes, that is important too. That is very important and essential. When I talk about rehabilitating the youth and providing a means of livelihood for them, and if you change the style of life, an idle mind is a devil workshop. If these young people are occupied working in factories and industries and have a better living condition and providing for themselves and their families, there will be no need for them to get carried away with drugs. Another thing is that the security network, we have to put a lot of money into national security and the protection. Very little is being put into security protection, providing for the police and the national security units. They need to be well equipped, they need to be properly uniformed, and they need to be looked after and get better compensation for their work and the performance of their duties. These are essential tools for national development and for wholesome functioning society in a country. That is very, very important. National security and funds. Huge portion of our national budget should be utilized for these agriculture, healthcare, education. We should go to more vocational training institutions. We should build things like the ZTTI, the KRTTI, the teachers training, and other BWI and other forms of institution of this nature, where people would be trained in professional skills. so that people can understand. I mean, most of the young people are available. They can constitute about 62% of the population. We have a very rich young group of people that need to be catered for. Rather than allocating $65 million for 103 people in the national legislature, we should allocate $65 million for almost 40% of the disadvantaged youth in this country. And you will see a very big difference in the quality of human resource that will be developed.
But do you sometimes advise President Weah? Do you sometimes advise President Weah? These are all fine words you're saying, but do you sometimes advise him?
Well, I'm not one of the principal advisors, but I'm one of those people who make constant comments. You always listen to my interviews and whatnot, and I reflect these things. And whenever I have the opportunity, I make sure that my presence is felt, and some of these things that I put forward, I put them forward to the functionaries in government and encourage them to be diligent in the discharge of their duties. It's not President Weah that is doing it. It is Liberians who are occupying these jobs. It is Liberians who are performing these functions and duties. And they must be responsible and responsive to the national development.
Sir, it's the president who supervises them, his officials. He supervises especially the cabinet.
That's why I said that he should put a strong hand down and get rid of some of these people who are not diligent in the discharge of their duties. But Liberians themselves, it's never a government that come in and say government is doing this or go. It's Liberians that are performing these duties. All the negative things about Liberia is being done by Liberians. These are Liberians professionals who are in jobs, who are not performing their duties and giving the government a bad image. They must be called to book and they must perform their duties. If they do not perform their duties, it is the responsibility of the national leader, the president, and other senior officials of government to ensure that they are removed, or changed, or cycled in other areas where they are found useful.
Well, apparently the president is not doing that, and that's the problem. He's not doing that. There's not been, I don't remember a major cabinet reshuffle since the regime of President Weah.
Well, I've said that on several occasions that there was a need for cabinet for reshuffle. There was a need to change some of these officials of government to make sure that you have an opportunity to get better people doing their duties. It is important that Liberians must be. I mean, nothing is written in stone. If you are appointed to a position and you do not perform, it is the will. You are appointed by the will and pleasure of the president, and you must perform your duties or be removed or asked to step aside, like we did in the NPP. Binnie was not prepared to perform his duty as a national chairman. We asked him to step aside and allow the party to continue. And that should be the same type of formula applied in the governance process. If someone is not committed to duty, it is easy to identify. You can see the loopholes in government, and the president has his will and his way to try to reshuffle his government and get more active people, more people that are proactive in government to perform their duties. And that is what I see in leadership. Leaders must take strong decisions in the interest of the people that they represent.
Okay, Chief Allen, is there anything else you want to say before we drop the line with you?
What I want to say is what I say all the time at the end of my interviews. I want to make it clear to all the citizens of this country, particularly my partisans and the partisans of other political parties, that the fact that we are competing in the democratic process do not make us enemies. There are some overzealous elements who have the way of defaming, denigrating, insulting political leaders of other political parties and whatnot. It does not augur well for Liberia. Liberians must learn to be, less zealous with these things, throwing rocks and beating drums and throwing stones, young people fighting and insulting each other and all that. It's not it's not democracy. It is not politics. Politics, democracy is through the ballot box. Go in and cast your vote and defeat your opponent. But to be insulting and fighting and whatnot is something that I detest very strongly. And I've said that. I've told my partisans during the primaries that this is an education for you all to stand online to be able to vote. And you saw that what happened during our primary, we had a lot of disqualified votes because people are not orientated to the process of voting, especially first-time voters. So this was a training phenomenon for our partisans to learn to stand online, cast their votes, and participate in the democratic process. So we want to sound a warning out to all political parties, and particularly our young people. Don't let any political leader lead you to fighting and fussing and cussing and denigrating your own country for any reason, because you do not win elections that way. You win election by casting votes, by lobbying and galvanizing strength at different levels of the society and winning the votes. You don't win votes by insulting political leaders or denigrating them or lying or misrepresenting things, you know. And so that is my advice to people. That's what I'm putting out for during the entire campaign process. I'm going to be one of the advisors for the campaign team of the coalition, and I will continue to pound this issue of people not being overzealous and not being disrespectful and rude and spreading unconfirmed and unorthodox rumors about other political leaders for any reasons. They do not win votes. In fact, people become disappointed in you when you begin to use all these kind of words and spread unorthodox and unconfirmed rumors about other political leaders simply because you are contesting in a democratic process. We are not enemies. We all will live in Liberia as Liberians. The young people will live together in this country for years and years and years. We, the older people, will give way to them, and they will be friends and colleagues for so many years. So they may as well learn the process of democracy and continue to lobby and speak on behalf of their support base to win the democratic process. That is the whole secret of this thing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.